name is Esplana. I'm 19 years old. I'm Filipino, Dutch, and Thai.
I told him to say he was 19 years old so I could pour them this shot of
Legally.
mezcal, but he's actually only 17.
Yeah, I know. This beard's fake.
Welcome back to the podcast. I'm Brandon Bagg. I'm sitting with Jay Esplana. Musica con mezcal. Give a little cheers.
Cheers.
How are you, my friend?
I'm here.
Thank you for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Yeah, we were talking a little bit before about you've got a gig coming up with Scotty Hills that you were talking about.
That's right.
And I was just thinking about all the different acts I've seen you play with over the years. There's Trilogy, 555 Soul, Jay Esplana and Friends. And I was thinking about, I wanted to know if you could talk a little bit about the origin of the name of Trilogy. Because it's got to be one of my favorite band names ever. Because it's yourself, Jay Esplana,
Yeah.
Jay Leonard, Jason Nickel, and then the honorary Jay, Johnny Jalisco. But it's like, what are the chances of like three dudes with all like the same name coming together, making a band, and then was it just like a no-brainer? Let's just call it this, or how did that come about?
Well, see, the thing is, we all had played together. Well, let me first start off by saying, without Jay Leonard and Jason, those guys really were the catalyst of my professional career. I mean, before that, I was already gigging in high school and in university. But then, I was subbing in once at a gig at the Shark Club when it was still hosting bands, it still had a stage.
Yeah.
And Jay Leonard was, he'd reached out to me. Actually, a friend of mine knew Jay Leonard. I didn't actually know who he was. And he reached out to me because he knew that I played some drums at the time. And so I was like, okay. I listened to the music. I was digging it. It was like this sort of R&B thing. It's everything a Filipino guy would ever like in this town anyways. It was like R&B, funk. And it was like, yeah, it was rad. I was so stoked. I learned all the music for the gig. I learned every note off the album, every fill and all that stuff. And then I hadn't actually met Jay Leonard yet. But I go to this rehearsal and we were practicing without him. And then he comes to the second rehearsal, straight from Hong Kong, being a total like superstar. He was playing with huge artists out of China, Sandy Lam. He's playing arenas and everything like that, playing Macau. He came for his one rehearsal late. And he came in and I just shedded all the material. And I was like, yeah, this gig, I love this gig. I put my heart and soul into it. It was right before my grad recital at university, so I was swamped. But I made time for it. And I think I paid like $150. And I show up to this rehearsal, the second rehearsal, and he shows up late. And not only is he late, like an hour and a half, but he changes all the arrangements. And
Of
I'm
course,
just like,
yeah. Gotta keep you on
who the
your
hell
toes.
is this guy? Right? And I was just like, I don't like you. I really don't like this guy. And he's got to be the front of this band. And so I'll cut to the chase at that gig. So I show up and play that gig. And it was one of the best gigs of my life. It was the one, not only did it start at all, but it's where I met Jason Nickel. And so at intermission, at the set break, I met him at the bar. And he's like, hey, great drums, man. Great sounding drums. It sounds fantastic. And I was like, ooh, I'm getting compliments from my drums. And then I met Marie Huey there for the first time ever. And that was the gig that started it all. And then after that, for about a year and a half, we played on and off together with, in various groups. Jay Leonard was like, hey, can you play drums for me at the Lieber Room? So I played at the Lieber Room a ton, which is a fixture of the Commercial Drive, rest in peace. And so I was playing drums for him there a bunch. And then I started playing with Jason because I met Marie at that gig, and Marie had me play with her a bunch. And so for a really long time, we'd all played together separately. We all just knew. It's like, oh, there's that killer guitar player, or there's that killer singer. And then Jason, who was, at the time, he was playing at church, Canadian Memorial United Church, and he called me to play drums. These guys don't know me. They don't know that I play other instruments or sing, and I was happy with that. I was like, okay, great. You don't know that I do other things. I just want to be a drummer in these people's eyes. That's just all I wanted to do. Like 5 years of music school of playing straight keys. Playing the drums was just such a palate cleanser. And so I just hid the fact that I played keys and stuff like this. And then And then me, Jason, and Jay Leonard, we somehow had a bit of a jam at the Cottage Bistro. And then they found out that I played keys because we traded instruments. And they're like, what?
Holy fuck! What
the hell?
Where'd this come from?
Where were you hiding this? And so they figured that out. And then eventually were like, so I was playing at church. I played at church, going back to the church thing. I was playing at church with Jason. And then eventually we had to get a guitar player. And then we're like, why don't we call Jay Leonard? He's fantastic. He's a great player. We all know him. Yeah, great. Awesome. And then we played as a church band for about a year and a half. And we all looked at each other and we're like, you want to put a band together? Because we're slaying it every Sunday for the Blue Hairs. Yeah. So we're like, why don't we actually go out and play together?
Why don't we play till 3:00 in the morning on Saturday
instead of 8 a.m.?
Yeah, so you get to church and play 8 a.m.
Oh man! And we didn't actually know that we wanted to do it, but we all sort of looked at each other like, yeah, why don't we do it? And we're like, we struggled to find what our band name was supposed to be. We're like, oh, I don't know. We started a thread on WhatsApp, and we're just like, and we're sitting there at church. Probably hungover, very blurry. I had probably just woken up from my car. And the sound guy there was making fun of us. He's like, oh, you want a band name? He still works there. His name is Andrew, and he gave us the name. He was like, oh, you guys look for a band name for the three J's? At this point, everyone was calling us the 3 J's. And the sound guy at church was like, why don't you call your band like Trilogy or something? And then we all like had this collective look, like, oh, yeah, let's do that, right? And then since then, we ran with it. So the way that our band was named was because of our sound guy at church.
That's awesome.
It was completely hands off. And you'd be surprised at how many people still mispronounce Trilogy.
Trilogy?
Trilogy. Yeah, they get Trilogy.
Well, because it's trilogy.
You'd think.
J, right?
I don't know. What do you think would be a useful sort of campaign to, end the misidentification of our band?
I don't know. I don't think eradicating stupid people is a thing that you're allowed to talk about. Like,
no,
can we just get rid of all the stupid people?
Oh man. Well, you know what?
I mean, people have tried. They're not remembered fondly by history.
Or they are, or they're somehow.
You mentioned I had no idea you started as a drummer with those guys because I only found out that you could drum randomly probably a year and a half ago when I popped into it would have been a Thursday night for one of Josh Wiper's gigs at Portside, which one of my favorite parts about his gigs is that a lot of times the musicians that were playing at Guilt will like finish their gig at Guilt and just jump on stage with Josh next door. And then I walk in. I had just finished my shift, and I walked in, and there's you sitting on the drum kit. I'm like, oh, fuck. This guy can play the drums. Cool. And then it's actually funny because this story got mentioned, I think in a previous podcast, but I was talking about one of my favorite things that happens at Guild. It's weird to say that one of my favorite things that happens at Guild is when a band cancels last minute because it doesn't happen all that often. It's very, very rare, but it's such a neat and humbling experience to see like how quickly that stage puts together a band and the community that plays on that stage. And I think there was like a company chat, and Josh Wiper, who also works at Guilt, was like, hey, I'd rather play than serve tonight. And then you and I think it was Alex Flock and yourself and Josh, right?
Yeah.
Put the bit together band like last minute.
Yeah.
And I'm like, oh, cool. I'm figuring it's going to be like guitars, keys, and drums.
Yeah.
And then I look over and you got this big fucking bass in your hand. I'm like, yeah, of course you can also play the bass, which if you can play the piano and the bass, it means you can also play guitar. I'm willing to bet.
Well, there's a lot of that that transfers over. Yeah, for sure.
But you're a hell of a bass player. It's not even like, oh, I can fumble through like I can play Pearl Jam covers on the bass or like whatever. You're actually fucking you slay it.
Thanks, man. It's fun.
So, you said you mentioned that you had like you 5 years of musical training, played keys.
Yeah.
Do you still in your mind, do you consider yourself a keys player, or do you consider yourself a multi-instrumentalist?
It depends on the day, depends on the week, depends on the gig. I think one of the things that keeps me engaged in this thing I've been doing literally all my life has been the variety. If not for the variety, I couldn't just stand, playing the one instrument.
So
But
pedestrian.
but it's I suppose I call myself a multi-instrumentalist. Um, but my heart really, I love playing the drums, man. I love playing the
Yeah.
drums.
Yeah.
I love it. It's just the most just primal, like
Every time I see someone playing the drums, I'm like, that looks like the funnest fucking thing you can do with your
Oh
clothes
yeah,
on.
totally. And it's
Yeah.
like it talks to you. It's right in front of you. I suppose I'm a drummer that identifies as a keyboard player. Let's just say that.
Sure, yeah. It's 2023.
And so depending on the day, I'm like, but yeah, bass is so fun to play too because, I myself am attracted to people who have this sort of silent but deadly aspect to them.
Mhm.
You just stay humble and, you don't have to talk that much. And if whatever work you do, regardless if it's music or if it's accounting or something, whatever the hell you do, you make pencils, as long as you do it well, your work will speak for itself and you won't have to push it so hard down people's throats.
Totally.
Yeah. And for me, that's nothing that I feel like I actively have to do. It's nothing that I have to like, right? But you go on social media and you kind of see the rat race that is like, you got to put on a bit of a face, which I get. There's a lot of utility to social media, and it's
Yeah. It's the narcissism that I struggle with. I'm like, I don't know anyone that deserves to love themselves that much.
no doubt, right? And you see the classic case where guys or gals or whatever, dogs or cats, or they're the shit online, right? And they look so, like they're killing it. They're crushing life. And you meet them and it's a completely different story,
Yeah.
right? I mean, to varying degrees. So I've managed to sort of avoid that. I try to. That's the only thing that I feel like I actively have to sort of like, think about.
You mean social media specifically, or like the hype of
Yeah, falling into that trap of like, if I'm
the
not
ego?
yeah. And honestly, Vancouver is such a anomaly of a town, musically speaking, because comparatively, you have cities like Toronto, LA, Montreal, New York. You always hear about, oh, you got to go out east, man. You got to go to east. Go to the States. And fair enough. There's a big population of people there that are extremely talented, devoted to their craft, and there's countless number of live music venues, so outlets in which your art can flourish, right? Which is great. But you're all fighting for the same piece of pie. It's all for the same $50 in a drink ticket.
Yeah, it's funny too because I must have heard you say that recently.
Yeah.
Because I mentioned that to someone else a couple days ago on this podcast, and I was like, I can't remember who I was talking to that said that, but it was someone was talking to me about how other cities, the big music cities, are fighting for that $50 and a drink ticket.
Totally. And it's a tough town to burn bridges, right? So
Totally.
Be a nice person, right? And if it's not working, just be honest and be open. And there's lots of work to go around in this town, surprisingly. And there's money in this town too. People still will pay for good entertainment. And if you're a musician worth your salt, even one bit, you'll stick out. And that's what's great about this town is, I've contemplated about going to the Philippines and really breaking out there. And just by virtue of my accent, I would be popular,
Right.
And but I don't care for that. I really don't. But I get to come here, and guilt is such an anomaly in itself, where there's live music twice a day, every day of the week, and all these musicians seem to come back here. And regardless of whether or not it's like, you have people that cancel, which is rare, which doesn't surprise me. But then you also have a community of people that are willing to rally together and just huck the sandbags and, keep it from going under.
Totally.
Which is so cool.
Yeah. No, it's one of my favorite parts about being down there. Do you feel like you had, was it a struggle for you coming from, a trained musician from school? Did you go to Capilano?
I went to Cap, yeah.
So many great players in the city went through Cap.
Oh,
It's
yeah.
an amazing music program.
100%.
Was it a struggle for you breaking into that point where you were like being able to say, like, I'm a musician, this is how I'm living, I'm supporting myself, this is how I'm living my life? being able to like kind of feel like you're standing on your own 2 feet as an artist.
You mean like being financially independent?
Yeah, or feeling like
This is my thing.
financially independent, but also feeling like you said, you know, starting out with Jay and Jason, you're like, I just want to be seen as a drummer in these guys' eyes, right?
Yeah.
For that beginning, but actually really being able to like, you know, with that grace and humility that you have now, being able to own yourself as an artist, was that a process for you?
Not really. I've been lucky where I've been lucky in the regards that music has always come very naturally to me. I grew up with it at home, and if you asked me, gosh, how old am I now? If you asked me even 10 years ago, if I was going to be a professional musician, I would have laughed at you.
We've already talked about this. You're 19.
I know. When I was 9 years old, you know, everyone asks you what you want to be when you grow up. My answer to that question, I was on a TV show. I don't know if y'all remember, but I was on a TV show called The Jenny Jones Show.
Oh, yeah.
And it was a primetime talk show. And this was before like all those shows got ugly. It was all about paternity tests and DNA and like people's, you know, girlfriends' shirts getting pulled off by side girl, stuff like that. I was on a television show, and it was like a Christmas special, and they're featuring all these talented children from around the world. And I was the one from Canada, and they go around the stage going, "So what do you want to be when you grow up?" "I want to be a firefighter." "What do you want to be?" "I want to be a doctor." And the mic came around to me, and they're like, "So what do you want to be when you grow up?" And I was like, "I want to be a mechanic." and everyone's like, "What?" A mechanic? And that's all I've wanted to be out of elementary school and in high school. I was in the trade. Like I applied for the trades out of high school. I was going to go into criminology because my parents were like, "Don't be a mechanic. Be a border guard."
Yeah. Don't be a mechanic, be a border guard. Don't be a mechanic, be a professional asshole.
Yeah, no doubt. Hey, man, sit in a booth. I can't even imagine. Oh.
But so it's funny that you mentioned you want to be a mechanic, because I also recently, you're a big motorcycle guy.
I just started getting into motorcycles, but cars. I've always been into cars and fixing my own cars, and motorcycles has been this thing where, you know, you kind of molt your skin every once in a while, and you realize it's like, oh, this is me. And I honestly felt after I started riding and fixing motorcycles, it's the most me I've ever felt.
Right.
In so many ways. It's like you get the solitude, you get the pleasure of wrenching on something that's old and making it work. And it's brutally honest. So I'm used to that as far as music is concerned. It's brutally honest. If it doesn't work, it's going to tell you.
It's going to let you know right away.
Oh, right away.
Yeah.
And so you learn. And for some reason, I just enjoy that. My mind really fixates on taking something that's kind of, you know, old and aged, but then restoring it. So I've just done that all my life. I was always the kid at school who'd take your broken toys, and I'm like, just give it to me.
Right.
And I would take it home and I would fix it.
Yeah. See, I was the kid. My brother was a little bit like that. My older brother would take stuff apart and put it back together to try and like figure out how it worked. And I, being, you know, a younger brother, classic younger brother, being like, I can also do that. And like, I would take shit apart and then not be able to figure out how to put it back together at all. And I'd like fucking tape it back together. And just like I remember I disassembled my mom's tape deck once. And I could not figure out how to get any of the pieces back in. So I just shoved it all in. And just like, I got the case back right. So it looked like it was fine. But I picked it up. There was like, all the pieces were just rattling around inside.
So what happened? How did she find out it was broken?
I probably blamed my brother on it. Yeah. And he probably blamed me on it. And then I probably got the shit kicked out of me. It was, you know, par for the course.
See, I had no choice. I had to fix whatever I took apart. That was the rule. And there was a lot of shit that I took apart that I could not put back together. And I don't know. My mind just really enjoys that.
Yeah, but it's both my brothers are like that. And I'm very much like, as soon as it starts to frustrate me, I'm like, I don't care about this anymore.
I'm learning more and more, though, that, you know, just because you could doesn't mean you should.
Right.
So I used to fix my own car. I used to cut my own hair. I used to do this. I do that. I'm just like, I don't have the energy. And that
It's also
probably
tough in this city to work on your own car unless you've got like a garage,
a
and a
garage or
space and
a
tools.
carport. Yeah.
Yeah.
But yeah, out of high school, I was going to go into, it was either I was going to become a medical imaging technician, go into criminology so I can be a border guard, or work for telecom. And none of those were musical, apparently. And I have to find her name. But in high school, because you have like your academic advisors, or
Yeah,
you'd
your
have to
counselors
submit
and
your
stuff.
planning
Yeah.
portfolio.
Did you go to school in BC?
Vancouver College,
Did you
go
have
Irish.
CAP?
What's that?
Career and personal planning. Did you have that?
Career and personal planning was part of high school. And so mine was like, I want to be a border guard because it has medical and dental.
Yeah.
and it has a paycheck that's reliable. And it's the government. So I didn't write because mom and dad said so.
Yeah.
But that's huge. I mean, Asian family, go figure. But my academic advisor, just the week before summer vacation, we go in, we hand in our planning portfolio with all of that crap on it. What's your plan? Which school you're going to go to? And then she's just like, all right, so I have your planning portfolio here. And then she's like, oh, okay, I'm going through it. And okay. Or Douglas College, criminology, fantastic. Okay, great. And she's like, okay. And she puts it in front of me. And I was like, I thought I just did it wrong. And she goes, all right, stay here. And she gets up and she goes to her office. And she has a little notepad. And then she comes out and she goes, on Monday at 1 p.m., you're going to go to Kaplan University. You're going to talk to Jane Sir, and she has an audition for you at 2 p.m. So talk to Jane at
Really?
Cap. And
What a cool lady.
I was like, I can't go because I don't have an audition. It's like, I don't have an audition. She's like, we got you an audition. It's like, no, they're closed. They don't, the application deadlines was like months ago. She's like, no, we got you in. Just show up. Here are the audition requirements. All right, see you later. Have a good summer. And that changed the rest of my life.
That's
Forever.
super cool.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
I got to find her again. I totally forgot her name. I got to look back at my yearbook. So it was not even on my radar. It just was not. I know that sounds kind of silly to say, but I had not resigned myself. I was very willing to climb a telephone pole and install your internet for you.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. But I mean, you said it on the nose. Like, just because you can do something doesn't mean you should. I spent 5 years on a construction site, framing, and it's good work. And I worked with great people, and it was good, nice work with my hands. I hated it in the wintertime. But you gotta do what you want to do, right? And I was not at all in the realm that I wanted to be in, and it's nice to have those nudges when you're young of people that can see something in it, because you've been playing music your whole life, right?
all my life, since I was 5 years old.
Were you in like band in high school and stuff?
Yep. I mean, that was the only reason why I chose that high school. I mean, apart from that, I was actually going to join the seminary.
Oh, really?
Yeah. I was going to go to
I was gonna install your internet or provide you with an exorcist. Exorcism. Thank you.
I was like, yeah. I mean, something that really attracted me to the seminary was not necessarily the priesthood.
I just liked the outfits, Like, I thought the collars looked cool.
They fit great.
I hear they're great at picking people up,
Your sweat doesn't show up. It was really cool. I did a little retreat up to the Westminster Abbey out in Mission. And it's this beautiful, beautiful church on a hilltop. And it's just like vast, mountain views and, landscapes and rolling hills. Gorgeous. And we got to sleep over there for a night. And every morning you'd wake up at 6 a.m. and you'd go into the cathedral and sing. I was like, oh, this is how I get to start my day. And you just get to sing. Granted, it wasn't music that I would choose, but nonetheless, it was still something that was kind of cool. And like, I liked the discipline. And you would hypothetically be with your bros. So it was like super chill. There weren't girls around. You wouldn't have to like change like your tone and start getting all funny when the girl gets in the room. You'd be with your bros. But I liked how the music was fit into like the daily practice. And you were away from your parents. You had your own like apartment. You had your own like dorm. It was rad. I just like the independence. So not the seminary, but I went to Vancouver College instead, which is an all private. It's a private all boys school out here on the west side. And if not for the number of band classes that I was in, like I had a rockin' GPA. Like I was like a 3.8 GPA all throughout high school. Not because I'm some mad scientist or that I had some gift in the sciences or, I could do math really well. But it's because I was in like 4 band classes in a choir every year. And it's just like, wah.
Yeah, I did the same thing with drama classes in high school.
You were an actor, right? Or you are an actor?
Yeah, I went to theater school. I just talking to a friend of mine who just booked his first film. We went to school together.
Cool.
And we were trying to figure out, we were at school, started school 9 years ago. So yeah, I started the journey on the theater school, actually about 10 years ago. About 10 years ago, and it was when I quit my job working construction and applied for theater school, and then ended up at Guild shortly thereafter. Worked there on and off.
Wow. So from construction to theater school.
Yeah.
So what was that shift? Were you relieved that you didn't have to talk to a foreman or take some?
I mean, I had to learn how to talk to women again. That was. I haven't seen one of you in a while.
Hey.
Yeah. What? So you mentioned one thing we haven't talked about yet is singing.
Oh yeah.
Because that's a big part of everything that you do. You sing and play the keys. And also watching you sing and play the bass was a trip. Because he's singing the exact same songs that I've heard him play on the keys, but he's just doing it with a fucking bass guitar in his hand.
It made my brain sweat just a tiny bit. I won't lie.
But what came first? Did you been singing your whole life, or did you kind of?
It was singing. Okay, so I'm going to preface this response by saying karaoke is the national sport of the Philippines. So
yes.
Naturally.
I think you and I've actually talked about this before.
Yeah, I did that. I did that for my guilt interview.
Oh, cool. Yeah.
And my dad had always been singing. I grew up with my dad's family. They're all homebrew singers, really good singers, really good. And they all really, and they all learned how to sing and harmonize with each other. And so going to family functions was always a singing thing. And we all sang our songs. But I grew up singing with my dad. My dad taught me, I had a tape. I had a Maxell 60-minute tape, and I do each side every day. I'd sing songs, and that was my practice. And then eventually I started performing. I started performing live from the age of 5 till about 11 or 12. And I was like working the weekends.
Just trying to earn your stripes before you can start turning that wrench.
Right?
I got to impress the right people. They're going to put me in base 6, and I'm going to change their fucking oil.
No doubt. Yeah. And so I was always growing up. I was always singing growing up, both in and out of church. Yeah. And until puberty hit, my dad thought, he's like, I've struck gold. It's everything I want my son to be. I think he was vicariously living through me. I think he always says, oh, your grandfather wanted me to become a doctor. And I tell him now, I joke around with him now. He's 79. And I go, you didn't actually want to be a doctor. You wanted to be a musician. And that's why I'm a musician. So probably my son's going to be a mechanic.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
But when puberty hit, at the tender age of, I think, 12 or 13 for me, I was going from this I can sing nice and high. And then my voice was changing and my range just went from this to I had a Michael Jackson.
With cracks.
With cracks and just the acne, back knee, and all of it. And my dad was in such denial that my voice was changing. And he was so choked. Because imagine from 5 to 12.
Right. Yeah.
Every weekend we're just doing it. We're doing it. And he's having fun. I don't know what the hell I'm doing. I just did the thing. And suddenly my voice just didn't do it. And it was scary for me, but it was almost relieving because I was like, I'm done with this shit. I'm done with singing. And puberty hit. My dad was in such denial. And so I just ended up taking instruments at church. I would go to mass, and I was like, I could play the bass because there was already a guitarist.
Yeah.
There was a drummer. I'm like, you know what you need is a bass player. And my uncle was a bass player, so he lent me a bass.
Right.
And so I used that bass at church. And it was
So you started with the bass.
I had always had a piano at home.
Right.
Right. But bass was sort of the first thing that I like gravitated towards on my own volition. And then eventually I'd start going to different I would go to multiple masses a week.
Just so you could play?
So I was going to 3 masses a week so I could play bass on Saturday, and I could play, piano and or drums on Sunday mornings. So I'd do a Saturday evening and 2 Sunday morning masses. So needless to say, I have good credit with the guy upstairs. So,
I mean, you're just fingers crossed it's a man. Like, I really backed the man, got his man horse. If I'm wrong on that, I'm probably fucked.
Some purple-haired, androgynous figure. But it's such a great way to develop musicianship. You hear about all of...
you hear about so many, like, look at so much of the stuff that came out of the South, gospel music.
Oh, yeah.
Starts... And if you go to a church in the South, they're fucking fun.
It's awesome.
Yeah, like
I've only ever seen videos. But.
Really, like I've only been to a couple services, but like in gospel churches in the South, where just like the whole the choir is just like moving and shaking, and you got like the reverend and the worship leader are like you feel like you're at a fucking James Brown concert.
Well, that's the thing. I think that when people think of church, they think, well, and yes, okay, sure, it is. That was probably dope, like way back in the day. Right. Like what? You can put colors in the windows. You can put pictures of people.
Yeah, that's true. I never thought about it that way.
Right?
Yeah.
And then you have this thing called an organ.
An organ? Yeah.
What? And the pipes are coming from different spots.
And they're amazing instruments. They're super cool.
They're so cool.
Yeah.
And the entire building shakes, right? And it's really not that far off when you think about it, the whole church experience. Let's take the word church out of it. Let's just say a musical experience is just as transcendent as any sort of religious experience.
Totally.
Because, you think about it, everybody congregates into one spot. They pay attention to the one person or the central figure, right? Maybe they have a libation or two to accelerate the transcendence, but they're bought in, and this guy's going, and then the entire crowd's going with them too. It's a religious experience. You think about it every time. The only difference is it's called AC/DC, and then that one's called Saint blah 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 church.
It's funny that you say that because my sister, she's a musician, and she was gigging in the city. She moved to Hawaii about 6-7 years ago.
Yeah.
But she was gigging up until she was like 8 or 9 months pregnant. I think right at the 9-month mark, she was gigging with playing keys and singing. And she'd gig all through her 20s. She was playing in Winnipeg. She recorded an album in Winnipeg when she was like 19. And we were all raised very, very Christian. And I kind of left the church much before she did. And she stayed in it. She was a youth leader. She was a worship leader. She was a worship leader at several churches. And I left and I was like angry. I was like, fuck God.
Not going to do this. Yeah.
And just mad at everyone, whoever. I was just like, Santa Claus isn't real. You've been lying to me. You've been lying to me.
Yeah, no doubt.
And my mom, my sister stuck with it for a long time. And I remember talking to her when I had calmed down a little bit.
Sure.
It's just, you get to that point where you're like, just because I don't think this anymore doesn't mean everyone who does think it is my enemy, right? You grow up, you calm down a little bit.
Fair enough.
And I remember asking her, I was like, because she had much later in life and for less sort of aggressive reasons, also stopped going to church and stopped being a big part of her life. And I asked her, I was like, why did you stick around for so long? Like, never really felt like you were like that into it. She was like, it was the music. And she was like, the second that I realized that the reason I was there was, she was like, I thought I was getting high off with God, but I was getting high off the music. Once I realized that I could have the music without this thing,
Sure.
it was just about the music for me. So it's funny that you say that about, you know, that transcendent experience.
Yeah.
Because there's music. No one who loves music can talk about music for a long time and not use the word soul, right? It's because it speaks to so much of what it is to be a human being. Your very fiber is the taking in and the partaking and the playing and the listening of music. And I think a lot of people that I talk to now that are still heavily involved in, or heavily or lightly involved in church in any way, shape, or form, for them it's about community, and that's still, you know, something that's really huge with music, and especially talking about Vancouver, talk about this community, talk about you again for yourself play with Trilogy, you play with 555 Soul, you play with the Soul Queens tribute as well.
Not officially, but I've played with each one of those people.
Play with Esplana friends, and then that's just the ones that I can name off the top of my head.
Sure.
I've seen you down there, and with probably 24 musicians over the years.
Yeah,
maybe more than that.
More than that.
Or 24 acts is kind of what I meant to say.
Yeah.
So it's neat. I've never really thought about it that way.
Yeah, I mean, I think people have a lot of hesitancy when they hear the word church or they hear the word religion, and I am not somebody who wears religion on my sleeve. I don't have scripture tattooed on my forearms. I don't pray every night.
You mean you're not a youth pastor from 1999? Like a giant lion and like fucking Romans 12. It's like, oh, that guy hates gay people.
They're doing it to get the girls, just saying. Don't do that just to get the girls. Yeah. Just do it properly. Go out. Yeah, it's I think a lot of people have this aversion to anything that, and fair enough, if it's not your bag, it's not your bag, but it's really not that different. It really isn't.
Yeah.
And what I think when I think about church and music, if not for that church sort of experience, I don't think I would have been the musician I am today, because it's such a good catalyst, I think, for a lot of fledgling musicians, because it's low stakes. You know, there are people out there who probably aren't even very good, honestly. You figure out what you don't like very quick. And if you're kind of good, you stick out. So it's kind of like my analogy about Vancouver. I'm not saying that the musicians here stink, but you can make your mark, right? And they will foster that. They will foster your talent. Whereas on social media, people, oh, I won't share his story because he's got so many followers. There's all this like sort of backstabbing and all this other competition.
Or like he said this thing about that thing that one time, and
he liked this photo on that account.
He must be this thing.
Exactly. Yeah. I mean, don't get me wrong. The church is it's rife with politics as well, but music is one of the best ways to sort of shield yourself from that. And I go like, I can exist apolitically. I can exist, it knows no boundaries. I don't care if you're a chick. I don't care if you're a guy. I don't care if you're old. I don't care if you're young.
Yeah.
And church provided that for me. And I did it 3 times a week before I even had gigs.
Are you guys still doing the Sunday gigs with Trilogy?
Oh, yeah. So I'm now the musical director at Canadian Moral United Church.
Right. And did you grow up in the United Church?
No, I grew up in the Catholic Church. But then I was playing music. I had a similar experience as like you. I grew up in the Catholic Church. And the Catholic Church, I got to say, you guys got to like update your catalog. The songs kind of stink. They're kind of crusty. And the only reason why you haven't raised enough funds for that leaky church roof was because your songs suck. Just saying. Dear Pope, figure it out.
Update your music.
Yeah.
Do you want us to put like your email at the bottom of this?
Yeah.
Catholic Church, hire J. Esplana to redo Pope. Your classic hymnal at newpope.com.
You know what? They're trying.
I'd vote for you. Can you vote for a pope? I don't know if it works that way.
I think so. I forget. But yeah, I'm still doing it every day. Or not every day. Every week. And that's just, I don't remember a Sunday that I've ever slept in for. It's very few. And going into the church gig and then getting rid of the mentality that it is a gig. You don't treat church, for me at least personally, I don't treat it like a gig. Mm-hmm. It's church. It's where you just get to do it. And I think some people struggle with that idea because they go, it's like, oh, this is what I'm worth and self-value and worth and all this other stuff, all this like relentlessly optimistic speak. And it's the one time during my week where I just get to just, this is just, I'm doing it for a bigger cause. And maybe it's not even for a cause. I'm just doing it because like, I like the discipline. You're bringing value to your community. Yeah. And there's that lady up front who's got tears running down her eyes because I played a C major chord so good. In my mind, I'm laughing. In her mind, she's crying. Right. And to be able to sort of exist in that.
And it's neat that you say that you talk about it being like, you're like, it's the same thing. One's just called AC/DC and one's called, how great thou art.
Yeah.
But you've got like, and I think it speaks really beautifully to how fucking the same we all are. And it's just, we just have different ways of taking the same drug.
Sure.
Different pipes, same crack.
Well, you think about how crazy music is, right? We sit here and we emanate noise. We just produce noise. And for some reason that makes 10,000 people over there want to wiggle compulsively. I don't know why.
Yeah. And also like how, like you take 50s doo-wop, speed it up, put a fucking drug addict at the front who can't sing, and you've got the entire 1980s punk scene.
That's it.
Like everything. You break down any metal solo, you got blues and Bach.
That's hilarious,
it all comes fucking full circle, and it's really, really neat to, you talk about that woman with tears in her eyes. I can't even count how many times I've been at a live performance where I've been moved to tears.
Yeah.
Like it happens all the time. And it's like, I let it happen. You want it to happen. It's cathartic. It's a beautiful community experience of going to a show and you all are staring at the stage, that you're all in love with the same piece of music. Mm-hmm. And it all means something completely different, but exactly the same to everyone there. And it's like, Grandma Pearl isn't going to get that experience. But she gets it on Sunday morning, and she probably got it at a concert 50 years ago, but she doesn't want to go out on a Saturday night anymore.
She doesn't care. She's getting it on Sunday. It's interesting how that works, because there aren't a lot of people in the world that are truly creative. I think there's very, 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 very few people who are truly creative. And that's not a slight on people who say that they're creative. Everybody's creative. But to be truly creative, to create something that's 100% original, no one's ever heard, it's very hard.
I don't even think it's possible anymore.
Right? And where everything is sort of derivative, we all get to stand on the shoulders of giants. So for me, the church and whatever crusty repertoire that's existed there, I just have fun taking it and turning on its ass and making you think, like sneaking in the broccoli.
Right. Yeah.
And
totally.
It's not a fucking airplane. And going like, wow.
That was an A minor. What's that doing in here?
Dad. Yeah. And that was probably what kept me in church, was going like, you can like this. And if I don't convince you, I don't really care. But it's like, no, you can't like it. But it's been really fun. And that's something that I encourage anyone to do. I mean, you think, it's just my way of practicing. I'm not one of those folks that can lock themselves in a basement and just shed for 2 hours. Right. I'd rather be out there, boots on the ground, and learn. Be in the trenches. But yeah, it's been an interesting experience, the whole church thing. I don't think it's really that different.
Yeah, you mentioned that you grew up Catholic, and then now that you're the
musical director
of a Unitarian church. Which are as dissimilar as two types of the same thing can be. It's like pecan pie and lemon meringue pie. They're both pies, but they're very, very different.
Very different.
Was that shift? Was it just musical? Was it just, did it happen? Was there? And Tim, do you still consider yourself in any way a Catholic, or was that an official shift?
I know. I mean, for me, I recognize my upbringing is definitely Catholic. My family's Catholic, and a lot of the Catholic values I espouse. I'm not like a really Orthodox Catholic.
Yeah.
I don't even say that I'm Catholic most times, right? But
because a lot of people do. A lot of people say that they're Catholic, like people say I'm Irish.
Sure.
You know, it's like, yeah, I'm Catholic, but
Yeah.
it's like, they haven't stepped into a church in 15 years. But they
That's
just
right.
like their mental, the way that they view themselves and the way that they interact with the world.
It was interesting. I had a similar experience as I had a similar experience to you in that I came to a point where I was sort of like, I'm not really digging this. Unfortunately, the Catholic churches that I grew up in really just didn't like any music that had beats 2 and 4 on it. Like you just couldn't do that.
Yeah.
And if that was it, it's like, no, wrong. And I'm like, you guys don't realize what you're missing out on. It's like you complain about not having young people here. You have an aging congregation, that roof is still leaking, and that priest up there is just babbling. You know, he's just stringing stuff together. And it really never captured me. And so music was sort of this thing. It was probably more self-amusement than anything. Selfishly, It was self-amusement. And I just had enough of it. I was like, I can't handle this. There's no reason why the people who are actually going to church on this Sunday are getting berated for supposedly not coming to church because of Super Bowl. You know?
Right.
It's like, no, we're here. We're all here. It's like, no, shh, we're here. You're good. But that was a theme. And, you know, typical sort of Catholic guilt, shame, right?
Yeah.
So I grew kind of tired of that. And the United Church was never something that really was a calling. It was just a byproduct of Jason needing a drummer. And I spent 7 years playing drums but actually it was also a paid position. Full disclosure, it was a paid position, which I was like, I'm getting paid to go to church? Like, what? That just totally tore the entire fabric of my Catholic being. I'm like, you're going to pay me? And I get to play drums. And
God is paying me to play drums.
Yes.
I have made it.
I was so stoked. And I put my heart and soul into it every time, regardless of how hungover I was. It was just like...
And I know that you were very hungover for some of those years because Trilogy did a lot of Saturday night shows.
We did. Oh man, we actually have an era where we call it Trilla Days, and that was before any of those guys had children. But yeah, showing up and just doing it. Don't complain. Just be of value to community, and and somehow, somewhere, it'll pay you back in dividends. I mean. That's just another word for sort of karma.
Right. Yeah. It's all the similar philosophies.
Yeah, but going back to but yeah, I ended up going to the United Church because of Jason, and I was playing drums there for 7 years, and I had a rare opportunity to observe everything I didn't enjoy about it, how the music was run, or technically how the things, you know, the types of speakers and the gear and all this other stuff. And now being the musical director, now I get to take all of that knowledge from the last 7 years
and do something about it
and implement it.
Yeah.
So it's been really fun. It's been really rewarding. The United Church is interesting too, because they're considered a big tent church where it's like all are welcome. Wherever you come from, you can be here. Yeah. And that was actually something that attracted me. You know, you had somebody speaking a sermon that wasn't, you're staying at home to watch Manny Pacquiao fight, blah, 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 blah. No, they had some they had Eastern philosophy. They had a Sikh, I don't know what you call them, but they had like a Sikh spiritual leader come in, and they just drew from different modalities, which I thought was so cool.
Yeah. It's interesting too because the coming from Catholicism, which is so it's shame and guilt driven, right? It's like, don't touch that thing. You're going to get hairy palms and go blind.
Yeah.
And it's all about don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this, don't do this. Even the whole idea of confession is this just acknowledgement that we're filthy by default.
Sure.
So having that other side of that, of being like no, I think we're good by default. I think that we do bad things, but I think that, do you find that you kind of drift between the two of those philosophies, or do you feel more in tune with one than the other?
I would say instead of, because one of the things that turned me off to the Catholic Church was this constant atoning for your sins, just constantly. And that in some way is actually a form of worship.
God damn it, I lost my rosary. God damn it, I just said God damn it.
Well, there was one time I went to confession. I was like, "Bless me, Father, for I have sinned. It's been 6 months since my last confession. These are my sins. I want to stop swearing and shit." I just found it to be.
It's like, I don't know, man. My mom told me to say that.
Oh, to stop.
Because I'm not telling you I lost my virginity.
No. What? What's that even? I believe in a lot of sort of the teachings and the values. My goal is to never impose that on anybody. I mean, you think about all the wars that start on Earth.
Right.
It's because of religion and
They're
sex.
still happening.
Yeah, it's still happening. And the last thing that I ever want to do is start a war with somebody who has, a kind of a different belief than I do. And it's just like, no, just be a nice person, be accountable, take responsibility, and that's it. It really doesn't take a god for anybody. I mean, I get maybe when we were afraid because we were getting chased by lions on the daily, and the common cold was wiping out thousands of people. But we really don't have a lot to worry about these days. We've got it pretty good. And I think as far as religion is concerned...
We do here.
We do here, for sure. And the role of religion in my life, the utility of it, I think, it's just, not, the Bible being one of the oldest books ever written, which is kind of a cool thought. We have that...
Yeah, especially when you think about how many people went into its construction, right? From the earliest transcripts that they've discovered to it's because it's two fucking religious books. It's the books of two completely different faiths.
Totally.
Which is one of the things that's so cool about it as a construction.
Yeah.
As a unit, right?
And it's been passed on generations. Obviously, things have changed.
No. It's all exactly.
It's all exactly the same. My bad. Let's edit that out.
Yeah. Is Catholic God watching this? He believes it's verbatim. J. Esplana still for Pope.
2024. We do it with buildings, right? We go like, oh, look at this, the stained glass. Look at it's got the original tile and the hardwood floors, right? And I'm not a book guy. I know you're an English major. You're an English major.
No, I was a theater school. I was
theater
major.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, I've read Shakespeare.
Okay, fair enough. English major.
But fuck Milton. Who gives a shit about him?
And I'm not a book guy, but, to think about the oldest book ever written is pretty neat. But living today, I get to turn on my tap and hot water comes out. And just having flowing water in my house and having the lights turn on every time you just reach for the switch, you really don't have a lot to worry about. I have food in my fridge. I have a family. I have friends that love me, and I have a community that I can go to.
I'll drink to that. Cheers.
And so religion for me, personally speaking, I just think that I enjoy the discipline. I enjoy something you repeat, and that could be anything. You wake up and you eat breakfast. That's your routine. For me, I wake up early on Sundays and then I play music. Could be a lot worse.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's neat.
It's not bad. Bad.
So, what does 2023 have in store for you? 2024. 2023 happened. No, it's 2023.
2023.
What fucking year is it?
Right?
It's honestly because one of my work documents, like spreadsheets, got the date on it for some reason. I think because it was a duplicate, it got changed to 2024, and I kept looking at it, and I'm like, am I in the wrong fucking year? It's like, did I miss a year?
Yeah, no doubt.
Is Doc Brown around? Am I being punked? So I've made that mistake like 5 or 6 times in the last couple of weeks.
I still feel like 2003 was like 10 years ago.
That's the year I graduated from high school, and I feel like it was 10 years ago. And I'm coming up on my 20th year reunion.
I see like the credits of a movie or a show.
Yeah.
And it says like copyright 2003. I'm like,
yeah.
Wow.
Well, you think about Lord of the Rings, the first one came out in like 2000 or 99. You're like, how is that a thing?
It's a thing.
Back in my day, we had CGI only on.
when people ask me when I was born or when my birthday is, I say I'm born. My birthday was in the 1900s.
Yeah.
'Cause-
Yeah.
There's a fair, there's a considerable amount of people now that are like, no, it's born in 2001.
And then I can say like in the second to last decade of the 1900s. Oh God. But no, do you got any plans musically or otherwise for 2020? Whichever 2020 it is.
Yeah.
I'm going to leave it ambiguous so we can re-air this.
Sure, whatever. Yeah, I'm going to be coming out with a new single soon.
You have, how many singles do you have out?
I have 2 singles.
Two
out
singles
right
on
now.
Spotify, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's about
Esplana, Spotify.
Esplana, Spotify.com. And it's been about a single a year. It's pretty slow, but it's sort of the pace that I'm at right now. So I'm coming out with a new single. I have a show coming up at Guilt on May 19th.
Is that
Jay Esplana and
that's
Friends.
Jay Esplana and Friends?
Yeah.
Yeah. Did you just play the 555 Soul, or you got that coming up next week?
Got that coming up February 25th.
Yeah.
So that's going to be me and my 2 singer friends, Maria and Tiffany. We're going to be playing throwback 90s and 2000s stuff you would have heard on the original Z95.3. Yeah. The Beat 94.5.
Oh my God, you really just dated us. Do either of those radio stations still exist?
I think Z95 is still around.
Is it?
Z95? I think. They just brought it back because it used to be like The Breeze 95.3. And you're like, nope.
Yeah, because it's now like all the same. Everything's come full circle. The stuff that was on Z95 20 years ago
Is now back.
Is now back on it.
Z95.
And everyone's like, it's, yeah.
Green Day, Alanis Morissette, Seal.
Yeah.
So,
but sorry, you were talking about the Jay Esplana and Friends show. Are you going to be showcasing the single there?
I'm hopefully, I've still got some time. So I think I'm going to have a new original out by then. And hopefully playing some festivals in the summertime. I've been applying furiously to various jazz festivals and municipal music festivals and the likes. And hopefully to take that on the road.
Yeah, it's the fun festival circuit. Do you have any bites yet?
I would have to check my junk email folder. Sometimes they slip past the goalie.
Yeah.
Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed.
Yeah. But I've been doing a lot more. I've been focusing more on my original stuff. I've been blessed to be playing everybody else's music for a long time, and I've learned. And now I'm going to steal all their ideas and call them my own.
Yeah, you don't want to read a book written by someone who's never read a book.
Exactly.
Yeah. So May 19th is Jay Esplana and Friends, right? At Guilt & Co. February 19th? No,
February 25th.
February 25th.
Yeah.
What's the date today? This might not air before then. So
It's the 14th.
if it's after the 25th of February and you didn't go see Jay's show,
Shame on you.
Fuck you.
Shame on you. Go to confession.
Go to confession.
Confess to me.
Is that an option?
Which? You
Confessing
confess
to you?
Oh, lots of people confess many things
Can
to
I
me.
just go into like a cubicle in a Catholic church and goes, "Forgive me, Jay, for all I've said." Just see what the priest does.
I'll listen, man.
Yeah. Cool. I'll take that under advisement. Next time I do something really, really weird.
Jay, don't tell anybody.
Don't tell anyone, Jay.
Please.
I'm gonna pour myself one little tiny more splash here so I can give you a cheers.
Yeah.
Are you good or?
I'm good.
And I wanted to sign off with thank you for being here.
Thanks
It
for
was really
having me,
awesome
man.
talking to you.
Oh, it's fun.
And I look forward to seeing you on stage again.
Likewise.
Cheers.